He's asking
Two
you to send you a Zoom link.
and one. Okay, I'll send it.
Hi, everybody. John Townsend here. Welcome to the Dr. Townsend Live program. This is a weekly show on lots and lots of venues where we answer basically questions about life, like what's important in life, relationships, family, marriage, dating, work, leadership, spiritual issues, church issues, and that sort of thing. And what we try to do is to give you a couple of things to make it worth your time here at, 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock Pacific time every Wednesday. The first is that we try to get to the why. There's something underneath whatever the struggle is or the pain is or the stuckness is. And just saying, stop that, think happy thoughts, has never really worked for most people. So we try to get the underlying thing that's driving that. And the other thing is we try to give you something practical so you can walk away thinking, okay, this is something I can do. It's a conversation I need to have, or it's something I need to journal, or it's a behavior I need to change. Because, you know, in the world of psychology, we're kind of known for vague, unpractical answers like, you know, this week, you just need to just try to be this week. Well, okay, what does that mean? You know, look at your navel. We try to make it practical. So the why and the practical, hopefully we help. We've got a great community here of people that listen in and check in and all that. And they're so supportive of each other when someone brings up an issue that somebody can identify with and they're vulnerable about it and that sort of thing. We got a special show today because we have a guest. And the guest is my long time friend and writing partner and all these great things, Dr. Henry Cloud. If you saw my my little email blurb that comes out, little video blurb, basically he's written a book, and the books and my blurb today was on trust. And Henry's written a book that is, I think it's out in the next couple days. I'm on Amazon right now looking at where it is. And here's the name of the book, Trust. Well, there's a good title. Here's the subtitle: Knowing when to give it, when to withhold it, how to earn it, and how to fix it when it gets broken. I love the way the subtitle is structured. Giving it, because sometimes we give it when we shouldn't, and we don't give it when we should. When to withhold it, because sometimes a person hasn't earned it. How to earn it yourself, because it goes both ways. And when it gets broken, how to fix it. I've read the book. Henry sent me the manuscript. It is really, really great work and so applicable to what people need today. So he is going to, whenever he gets on the Zoomy thing, he'll show up with us, and we'll, let me see, I'm supposed to do something. I'm supposed to send him. Oh, okay. I am sending him a link right now, and I think this is going to happen. So until it does, I did want to say a few things about trust, because, you know, we talk a lot about trust on the show. In fact, last week, I did bring up how Henry's book is going to be so game changer for this. But the idea is, whenever you talk about trust, most people think that trust and love are sort of these two parallel things. You know, we're supposed to always love people, always trust people. I can remember back in the day when our kids were small, and I'd be talking to people like, you know, how are you, you know, handling your kids at 13, which was never a fun years. And some of the parents would go, well, I just trust them. I'd say, and I would know the kids, I know they're about smoking dope and stuff. And it's like, well, what do you mean you trust them? Well, if you love somebody, you trust them. And it sounds so healthy, and it sounds so like connecting, and it's a nightmare. Trust is earned, as Henry's title says, and love is not earned. Love is free. And there's Henry Cloud. Hey, man.
How you doing, buddy?
I am good. I just told everybody your book's coming out, and it's a great book. I've read the manuscript, and so glad you had time to get on here and tell us a little about content, because I told him it's probably the longest subtitle I've ever seen in my life, but that doesn't mean it isn't helpful.
It is a long subtitle because we can be on either end of this, you know, trust malfunction, right? You don't know when to give it, don't know when to not to give it, don't know how to earn it from people, and then when it gets broken, who knows? But John, I got to tell you, I had two choices, or one choice, two options. I could write the book on trust, or I could just put a picture of John Townsend up, because I dedicated the book to Tori, my wife, the most trustworthy person I know. But other than her, I just had to put your picture up there and say, be like this guy. I've known him for 100 years, and there's nobody more trustworthy. So, but then I sent it to the publisher, and they said, no, we need more words than that. So.
Well, thank you. And back at you, man. All the things we've done in our professional relationship and our personal relationship, it's the same thing. And I can't think of anybody more qualified to write it. So let's start off with why. I mean, as an author, you always kind of think, what's my next book? And this came up for some reason, right?
Yeah. I mean, this, I don't think either one of us, ever went and sat on a rock and said, oh, I need a good idea to write a book about. That's not how it happens. We're practitioners. We're not really authors, as you can tell when you read our books. But the work writes the book. I mean, when you sit in the war rooms with, with leaders and CEOs and companies, and then individuals and couples, there are, in that work and all those gazillions of hours, a lot of times, at least the way it works with me, is there's seasons where it seems like I keep having the same conversation over and over and over. It's like, for whatever reason, it's like this issue is kind of calling out, and then it kind of rises to the top. And this is a model that I built years ago for leadership. And I've been working with it for a long time, just never had written about it. But it just seemed to be something I was hearing more and more and more. And, the big picture of our world right now, trust is even, who do you trust anymore, right? What information do you trust? What institutions do you trust? But it all comes down to the individual level, cell by cell. I think that's where we start. So that kind of drove it.
Yeah, it makes total sense, not only with the work you're doing with leaders, CEOs, boards, but also, like you said, people kind of understand that relationships are important now, but the navigation of them, and I was telling them the intro, so many people kind of equate trust with love. Well, if you love somebody, you trust them, sort of de facto, and nothing can be further from the truth, because one is free, supposed to love everybody, but one, there's requirements to, and I love the way you sort of structure that in the book. So go over actually it's a five-step model, right?
Yeah, we can actually trust somebody we don't love. I mean,
yes.
If I'm back in Mississippi fishing and I see an alligator, I can trust him to eat me if I get in the water. And I don't love him, but I can depend on something's going to happen. And so It's really important. The problem with this whole topic and all of us humans is that we are actually designed and wired to trust. And it's biological, it's neurological, it's physiological, it's psychological, it's emotional, that God wired into us mechanisms to, I hate to use this word, but to make us trust, like we're wired to breathe, because we draw all of life from outside of ourselves. God's the only self-sustaining person. We all get life from outside of ourselves. So if a baby comes into the world, they got to get jump started to trust and to make that attachment, to begin to take in love and food and all that in order to grow. And we're no different. So we're wired to do this. We have to do it. If we couldn't trust, we wouldn't be breathing. You wouldn't be taking in air. Your system is saying it's okay to trust, take in the air, until your system tells you it's not okay. And then you smell a gas fume, and what happens? You stop and you start to check it out before you breathe anymore if something tastes bad. Well, that's how we're wired. The problem is our wiring isn't always good. And so sometimes we have false positives, and will trust somebody because they have this good feeling, but there's more than a good feeling. We got to check off the boxes, that the heart and the head are going together. And a lot of people get in a lot of trouble because their heart says, I love this person, but then they jump ahead without checking some boxes. And also, John, as you know, we have false negatives. There are a lot of times when people should take the next step. They got a great opportunity, but they're just afraid to relinquish control or afraid to be vulnerable, in a personal relationship or a business relationship. And your life will never get big without trust. It just won't. So it's a big deal. So I thought, to have a model where people could look at a relationship and kind of check off the boxes before they go the next step would be helpful.
Yeah, one thing I liked about the structure, and I know you're going to get into it, was you can't even do this alone, the program alone. You've got to have certain people who have their heads on right and are trustworthy, because you got to keep vetting this stuff with other people as you look through, okay, what was the behavior? Is it consistent with what they say? What do I do? And so you've kind of built it around, even if you're not good at trusting, it's really good to have at least one person that you can walk through with this stuff to keep your head straight.
It's so true. That proverb says, in a multitude of counselors there's safety. Mm-hmm. And nobody goes to war without consulting their advisors. Mm-hmm. And when we trust, one of the definitions of trust is to put yourself at risk of being harmed. Trust involves vulnerability. Well, if I'm going to do that, I want a second opinion. I remember when we were out there, in the dating world. We were both single in graduate school, and we had this group of friends, and one of them would say, I found the one. I met her. She's awesome. Well, we want to meet her. Let's all go out to dinner. And they bring this person, or it could be a woman bringing a guy that's awesome. They found the one, and you meet him and they go, what are they smoking? This guy nutcase. And you got to shake them out of till the drug wears off, right? Because you need a second set of eyes.
Yeah.
And it's important. It's like that in all of life.
And I love it when you talked about that it's such a lifeline. I thought about that Psalm where it says, David's praying and he says, you taught me how to trust in you at my mother's breast. God wired us even to learn to relate to the eternal, who is spiritual, from the physical. A lot of times we think, the people who are Christians will think, oh, I've got to really connect with God before I connect with people. But it starts with the people thing, and it makes it better with God. And sometimes the people thing goes bad, it makes it worse with God. So all the way from life, from the very first moments of breath to figuring out who God is, it's that pervasive in our life and so necessary.
It's such a powerful parallel experience that the Bible talks about over and over and over. You got that passage where David says, God, he says, you taught me to trust you at my mother's breast. It's the first experience of depending on an outside source to, give us life. And then way over in 1 John, he says, dudes, I think that's in the Greek. He goes, dudes, how can you say you love a God you can't even see if you can't love your brother that you can see? Right. And we forget that this incarnation, we talk about the incarnation of Jesus, that God put on flesh, that we have an incarnational gospel and an incarnational experience of that gospel of God living inside of people. And where two or more of you are gathered, there I am also. And if we don't get the God and the people thing together, then we're not experiencing all of what it means to be with him.
Right. So kind of
John, one more thing I want to say about this. I know you and I have talked about this a lot. And when we wrote one of those stupid books we wrote, what was Raising Great Kids? That's what it was. And we were talking about, the developmental, how kids learn to love and grow up and all that. And we were talking about how you hear this all the time where people say, well, your relationship with God comes from your relationship and how you experience your earthly father. And we would just remember that our hair would catch on fire, because that's part of where
It's part of it.
your relationship. But you go back to what the Bible actually says. It's back to, God, you taught me to trust you at my mother's breast. And a lot of the deepest experiences that people have of broken trust with God didn't come from a bad father, although they can, but they came from much earlier developmental issues of not being able to have basic needs and dependency needs for another person. And that generally comes a little bit before, the mentoring and provision and all of that we typically ascribe to the father role. So it's both moms and dads. But the point is, when people are suffering of a broken trust muscle, you got to look into your whole relational world developmentally to figure out where that came from.
Yeah. There's more than one involved, and sometimes just other incredibly significant relationships, not just because God's a dad and we got dads here. It makes bigger than that.
It could be an uncle that molested somebody. They came from outside the inner circle of the immediate family, but relationships matter to our trust muscle.
Yep. So walk us through, Hank. It's really, really good stuff. It's understandable and it makes sense.
Well, what I tried to do was, make it as simple as possible without leaving out anything important. And I came up with five, if you look at sort of like an algorithm, there's five boxes that have to come together for our system to really, in a pretty good bet, be able to hit the go button to trust somebody. And the first one is we begin to trust and can trust only people that really understand us. If somebody doesn't understand you and what you need, if they don't know what hurts you, if they don't know what's going to wreck your life, if they do A, B, or C, or wreck your business, if you don't feel like they get you and what you're afraid of and what causes you pain and what causes you happiness, then you're going to be in that relationship going, well, they don't get it. I'm trying to tell them I need this, or I want them to, stop doing this. And if they can't really, with deep empathy, understand you and your world and your reality, then trust is broken down from the very beginning. We hear the term gaslighting now. It's a popular term now. The reality has been around forever. What it means is when somebody's trying to tell you something about their reality and what they perceive and feel, what it's like to be with you, and then you keep telling them, well, that's not true. So you're not listening. And how many spouses have come home to a note, after 20 years of marriage and says, I'm gone. And they go, what happened? Well, they've been trying to tell you for 20 years and you're really not hearing them. You're not understanding how much pain they're in or how much aloneness they're in. So it starts with understanding. And, in the book I write about, I had a couple of knee replacements over the last few years. And, first went looking for a surgeon, interviewed the first one. I walk in there, he puts the x-rays up and he goes, yeah, you need 2 total knee replacements. Now, I'll tell you something. He says, if anybody else tells you anything different, they're wrong, because this is what I do. I understand what's going on here. You got to have 2 new knees. So, if you want to do it, this is what I do. Just schedule it with, whoever out there. And so it's been, it's good to meet you. And started walking around. I said, whoa, wait. He goes, what? And I said, that's it? You can tell that just from a glance. Actually, is there a little more to understanding what's going on here? He says, no, I totally get it. And he was, I'm sure he's right. Okay. He did understand by looking at that x-ray that I need, but I didn't understand that he understood.
Yeah.
I didn't.
And he went to no great pains to help you understand that he understood.
Zero. So I go, I'm going to look for another surgeon. So I go to the second one. The second one says, yeah, I looked at your x-rays. He goes, how are you walking around? I mean, you must be in all sorts of pain. Tell me, when does it start? How does this develop? What does it do to your functioning? Help me understand how this progressed and what's going on where you are right now. All of a sudden, I felt like immediately different.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the first one. We want to feel like somebody understands what we need. They want to know where we are. The Bible says a person's heart is deep, deep waters, and the wise person draws us out. And that's by basically listening.
Yeah, at the Townsend Institute, which you're a fellow of, we talk about getting in the well with someone. Are they in my well or not? And if they're just saying nice things, but they don't really show, they don't go to the work of how overwhelmed we are, how scared we are. If they can't get in the well, you can't go further.
Such a great phrase. One thing would be look down on the well and say, oh, I bet it's dark down there. Well, that's different. That's different than climbing down into that well.
Yeah. We
really trust people that we know understands what it feels like to be me right now, what I need. So let's say my doctor understands, doctor empathy. All right. So then he says, and this is quite a case here. Hold on a second. Now this actually happened to me. Then he calls in from the outside some people. All of a sudden, like 3 or 4 residents come in. So it's big training university hospital. 3 or 4 residents come in. He starts going, okay, do you see this? See how this muscle here is shaped in the way. This is what I was telling you guys. What we can do, the study we're doing, we can take actually. This would be the perfect case to illustrate with. And all of a sudden, I realized this whole thing is about him and his agenda. Now, we went through training and we know that you gotta, patients sign up to help other people. But there was no me anywhere in the room. The second element of trust is, what's their motive? And it felt like his motive in seeing me was to get me in a research project or use my, aching body to teach these guys how to go carve somebody else up.
Yeah, you're a lab rat now.
I'm a lab rat. And I felt like it was all, and then it turned into all this stuff he does and talking about, it was him. And I'm wondering, hey, there's a patient over here, and we got to feel like everybody's got self-interest in every relationship. Hopefully we do. We want a relationship to be mutually satisfied in what we need. But if it's all about one person and it's just about them and it's their agenda all the time and what they want, and you don't feel like they're for you and what you need out of the relationship or out of the business deal or whatever, you can't trust that.
Yeah.
Because the only time you're going to get good results is by luck of the draw if you're wanting what they want.
Right.
I love the phrase that the Bible uses. It talks about grace. We think of grace as God's unconditional acceptance. It's much more than that. It's his unmerited favor. It means he is for us when we're not even doing anything, that he's got our back. And so you can trust somebody when you feel like they are for you, not just their own interests, but as Philippians says, also the interests of others. And so, this is a marriage where guys out there, what if, so I'm a golfer and, I'm out and about. Somebody says, hey, let's play golf on Saturday. And I'm in immediately. I'm in, right? Well, that's not as good as oh, that sounds awesome. I really want to play. I don't know how that'll affect Tori's schedule and maybe what she, wants us to be doing this weekend. Let me check with her and I'll get back to you. Okay. That's a simple example. But in marriage, you're always thinking about how is what I'm doing or not doing going to affect the person that's depending on me. In fact, John Gottman, the marriage researcher, his definition of a betrayal is, I'm going to not get these words exactly right, but he says a betrayal is basically when one party acts without consideration for the other party's interests. That's a betrayal.
Even if it's something not bad, the fact that the person hasn't been considered. I know that you and I have had many conversations about people that we would know, just sort of like professionally, personally, and how they understood, but it was like when you weren't around them, were they thinking about you at the time, or were they sort of into their own thing? Right. Like trust in that second piece of are they for you? Are they for you when you're not in their presence? They have to be nice. And I love that example you said about, you got to, let me check with Tori. She's not here to speak up for herself. So do they kind of carry you around hoping of your best when they're making decisions?
That's exactly the point. That, do I need to be in the room always to guard my interests? That's the big question, or are they guarding me when I'm not there?
Right.
And that goes to all sorts of stuff, business relationships, personal relationships, marriage, a lot of stuff. So now I got, Dr. Empathy, who the doctor I chose, what he did on the second one, the first one, was the guy that wants to use me as a lab rat. It's all about him. The one I chose, he actually said these words. He goes, I was asking, because I got referred by a mutual friend. He said, I was asking Fred about you. He said, he told me about your golf career and competitive golf career and all that. And he said, we got to get you back out on the golf course. I mean, he said, how long has it been? I said, I've been banged up for, over a year now. And he says, oh man, we got to get you back out. And then he says, how old are your kids? And I said, they're 20. At that time, I think they were 20 and 21 or 19 or 20 or something. He goes, well, y'all are going to be out. You got to get traipsing around and walking with them and doing stuff. We got to get you back. And all of a sudden, somebody was looking out for my interests. I wasn't just a research project. And when you feel like somebody wants your life to be better, or as a result of their relationship, they want it to be good for you as well as them, that's the second box. So now I got my caring doctor. Not only does he understand, but he's looking out for me, right? So we're ready to go get scheduled, right? He says, all right, let's go get this on the schedule. And then he looks at me and goes, and by the way, I am so excited to do your knee surgery because I'm an OB-GYN and I've never done a knee before and I've always wanted to do one. Well, stop. I might love you. You might be caring, but that's not the part of the body that I, was asking you to go after. So the third one is, does the person we're trusting have the ability to pull off what I'm trusting them to do? And this is where so many people screw up. I mean, how many people we know that they fall in love and that person is so understanding and they're so for them and they're so loving and they're a great boyfriend or girlfriend, but they really don't possess the competencies that it takes to be a great husband or wife. There's a skill set involved there. Just like the difference in knee surgery, and an OB-GYN's practice. And we do this all the time. I mean, how many people do you know that like they're friends with somebody? Say, oh, gosh, we have so much fun and see the world. Like, let's go start a business together. And they do that. So there's this trusting relationship. But then you find out this person is great as a friend, but he sucks as a business partner. He can't run a business. Or they ask him to be an elder at a church they're starting because they're supportive and, spiritual and all this. But the thing starts to grow and they need some competencies around that table that person doesn't. And it's just an area that we have to think about. If I'm going to trust somebody to do A, B, or C, then are they able to do C as well as A and B? Or maybe I trust them in other areas, but not in this one. So we have to look at somebody's abilities and their competencies. And so now I find out my surgeon, the one I picked, he holds a patent on a lot of the devices they put in people's knees. In fact, the ones in my knee, he designed it and patented it. He's got a research lab with the PGA Tour, so he's really into studying golfers' knees. He lectures all over the world. Okay, I get it. You're competent. Great. Now we got 3 boxes checked, ready to go. He says, all right, well, you know what? We have a theater surrounding the operating room. If you want to watch one of these, I'm doing one in just a little while. If you want to watch, then come on and watch. And so think about this. Now, I didn't do that because I don't think I'd let anybody touch me after you see what they actually do. It's ugly. So I didn't watch it. I didn't go on any YouTube videos and watch it. But what if I had gone and watched him do one? And all of a sudden so Mr. Understanding, Mr. Great Motive, Mr. Competent, right? He's got all the skills. So he starts to saw this guy open. He's in there for a few minutes, and all of a sudden he goes, oh no, oh, he's bleeding, oh no, the guy's bleeding. Somebody do something, there's blood here. Well, now we're getting into the fourth one, their personal makeup, their character. Now, character more than just are they honest and don't steal and cheat and lie, but are they cool under pressure? If I'm trusting them to do something, there's going to be a lot of stress. I mean, he might be a great knee surgeon until somebody nicks a vein or an artery or something. And now we need somebody that's got a steady head under pressure. If you're going to hire somebody, let's say you got a department they got to go turn around. It's going to be a year before they get any good news because it's a mess. But you got somebody that's got a need for everybody go, attaboy, good job, great, and good news all the time to feel good about themselves, as opposed to the person that just is not happy if there's not a problem to go solve. Those are different makeups. I had a brother-in-law who's a Navy SEAL, and if the bad guys are coming after me, I want Mark to go get them because his makeup is the courage and that's what he did. But if my dog dies, I want somebody to cry with me in the middle of the night. It's not going to be Mark. He'd say, dude, what's wrong? It's just a dog. Come on, let's get right. Because he had this tough skin. But then my empathic friends, I'm not going to send them if Al-Qaeda is coming after me. So you got to look at, and that's more than skills. That's actually how they're glued together. It's their makeup. Does it fit the context?
You see so much of that in relationships too, in terms of the capacity, ability. Hank, when somebody's got somebody that it's really good and then things are working well, there's understanding. And then if there's sort of a glitch in between, somebody, lets somebody down or disappoints them or they're harsh, and the other person freaks out, it's all over, they blow up, and you go, well, did we just have the exorcist here? What's in that? Their makeup came out under stress, which is why it's so cool. You write about in the book is you got to know people in the seasons of good times and stressful times too, because that's when character comes out.
That's right. That's exactly right. And they can be very competent people under certain circumstances.
Right.
So that's a, we always would say when we were speaking to singles, look, you can do what you want to, but don't make any decisions before a year.
Yep.
Because it takes that long to go through a lot of different variations of life and meeting family and friends and seeing somebody go through a work downturn, or they have to change jobs or whatever it is. And you're really getting to really, vet them. John, I remember, where is the passage where Paul is, he's talking about elders, I think, but he says, don't lay hands on any man too quickly. Where is that?
I think it's in Timothy. I think First Timothy, I believe.
So we're talking about something, vetting people or something. And John goes, the Bible says, don't lay hands on any man too quickly. That's not a dating verse. What that means is, but you know what?
But it kind of could be a dating verse.
Metaphorically, right? That to lay hands on somebody back then was to anoint them and favor them and give them this office, because you're going to go trust them to do something.
Yeah.
Well, he says, don't do that too quickly. And so that's what this seasons things will do, which actually interfaces with the fifth point, the last one, and that is the track record. What happened the last time? Our minds build mental maps. When you went down to the kitchen this morning to get your coffee, you just kind of walk in there, even if it's dark, you just kind of walk in there and you trust the map of there's a step, you don't have to worry about it. You've done it 1,000 times. Last time you walked in the kitchen, everything was fine. Well, what if somebody got up early and decided to rearrange the furniture? You're going to walk down there assuming everything's great, and then you trip over this thing. Well, then the next day, you're going to walk down there and you're not going to be as trusting as the path, because, I thought things were okay, but then the last time I came here, somebody rearranged. So now I'm reticent. And if we get, if we're going to trust somebody, we got to have a map of a pattern that this is pretty much how they are. And I can depend on tomorrow being that way, because yesterday was that way. Now, I don't mean one day. Any of us can have a bad day. In fact, it's not just one day. It's always a pattern. A track record really is a track record. It's not just one event. And in fact, if you have a good pattern, then when you do make a mistake or you fail, for example, just pick, just 1,000 different guys that we can think of. There's just people that and you can depend on. John and I, when we did hospitals together, we would have certain therapists that we would refer people to, and we just knew them and we knew their track record. Well, if somebody comes back and says, you refer me to that guy, he's an idiot, whatever, we immediately would go, something's wrong with this dude.
That doesn't sound like them.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like them. They would not have done that. And we just know. Or if you're having a meeting with your team, it's 8:00, you're supposed to start at 8:00, and Mary's not there, and Mary's always there. What happens? Everybody's all of a sudden concerned. Oh, I hope Mary's okay, because Mary's always here.
Yeah, as opposed to, well, she's just a flake. No, that's not the pattern.
That's right. If you go to that same meeting and Joey's not there, somebody says, well, we got to wait on Joey. Everybody else go, we ain't waiting on Joey. Joey's always late, right? Yeah. So we trust patterns. Now, what do we got? We got somebody understands what I need. They care about meeting that need. they have the ability to meet that need, and they have the makeup to be able to make it good and tolerable when they're meeting that need. And I can trust it because they've done it 1,000 times before.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty good, ready to trust button. Even though you can still get burned, even with us 5, God has that problem. He's pretty insightful, but sometimes even God gets burned because he's trusting imperfect people. But it's also reparable when that happens. And so there you go.
It covers everything. And it's guys, when you read the book, you'll find out, it's so doable and relevant to your life, but there's so much under the hood that you can dig into. So, hey, Henry, people want to get on and ask you a question. Are you okay with that for the last few minutes?
Yeah, as long as you answer it.
That's what I mean. Sometimes I just can't trust what you. Hey, Stacy.
Yeah.
Or you
Stacy,
can.
our producer. This is Henry Cloud.
Oh, yes. Hey, Henry.
Hey there.
Okay.
And Stacy, I think you said people want to ask them some questions.
Yep. They probably have questions for both of you. So I'll just let you guys decide who's going to answer it. But we're going to go ahead and bring in our first caller now. And caller, you are live on the Dr. Townsend live show. Go ahead and tell us your first name only and where you're calling us from. Oh, are you with us? I hear you.
We don't hear her.
Caller ending in 160. You are live on the Dr. Townsend live show. Go ahead and tell us your first name and where you're calling from. Okay, I think maybe they might be having.
Hey, Stacy, can you hear me?
Yes.
Did you hear about that psychologist that his receptionist goes back to his office and said, "Yeah, your next patient is out there," and he said, "What's his deal?" And she says, "Well, he thinks he's invisible." So the psychologist said, "Well, tell him I can't see him right now."
Okay, that works too. Oh my gosh, that's a good one. Great one, Henry. Okay, next caller. You are live on the Dr. Townsend live show. Go ahead and tell us your first name only and where you're calling us from.
Hi, this is Kim. I'm calling from Toronto, Canada.
Hi, Kim.
Hey, Kim.
Hi. I have a question. I think like my trust muscle was pretty damaged as a child. I'm in my 50s now. Most people would say I'm pretty well adapted and such. But, there's certain things like, I don't know if you've ever done those things where you fall backwards and people are supposed to catch you. Those trust tests.
Trust falls, yeah.
Yeah, I can't ever do those. And I'm wondering, like, is that just like minor? It doesn't matter, but like any kind of like trust test, there's just something in me that just goes like, nah, I'm not doing it.
And so the question is what?
Where do you start if you want to try to grow to be more trusting?
Well, we could take a long time on this one. But I can give you, if your goal is to be able to fall into somebody's arms, I think we could accomplish that just, pretty quickly. And the way you do it is you get them to come up next to you and put their hands on your back and then move them a half an inch. And you just start with a half an inch and then they move them another half. And so it may take an hour, but you're going to gradually move into this, which is a good metaphor for how we do it in relationships as well. But you could solve that one, I think, through small, gradients of what's called exposure therapy, really. You could do that. But what I think John and I would both, probably if I could see inside of his head, which is a scary place that you don't want to spend a lot of time. But if I were to
have no idea.
I bet he's thinking what I'm thinking, which is that usually when we have a symptom like that, it's still tied to a network of memories that gets kind of tapped into somehow of and in this instance, that is a great metaphor to tap into that network. If I really let myself go, will there be someone to catch me? And if I were to guess, somewhere in your history, you learn that it kind of all depends on you. And you have to watch out. And so I would want you to just do a little more work to make sure that some of that network of memories is kind of like worked out.
Yeah, if it, I was thinking the same thing that Henry was saying. I was thinking about how in relationships, people can do really well who still have trust issues, not just the physical, go out to a retreat thing, but where there are certain vulnerabilities they won't bring up, or they won't sort of like let someone know them. There's in the Old Testament, the word trust, actually one of the definitions is to be careless. And so there are people who have great jobs and great marriages and great everything, but they have to kind of be reserved a bit. They can't be careless. So I would also add to Henry's idea about the graduated exposure. You may want to investigate with, somebody who's wise or a pastoral counselor or a shrink or somebody, and find someone whose job is being trustworthy. You can't start with some meth addict who's like in prison all the time. That's the wrong way to start. Somebody who's got a good track record of that's what they're about, that's why they're successful, and begin to take risk with trusting that person. But thanks for the call.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Stacy, should Henry and I blab, or you got somebody else on the line?
You have another caller. Let's see. Caller, welcome to the Dr. Townsend Live Show. You are live. Go ahead and tell us your first name only and where you're calling from.
Sure. My name is Bonnie, and I'm calling from Virginia.
Hi. Is it phony or Sony? I didn't get the letters.
John, it's Bonnie, like Bonnie and Clyde.
Hi, Bonnie. Thank you for calling.
Sure.
John and I used to know a Bonnie and Clyde, actually.
Well, I was in John's TLP back in 2010.
Oh my goodness. That's right. Hi, Bonnie. Welcome.
Hello. Yes, I wish I didn't have to call you, John.
You can call him, something else.
Well, I got double bonus today. I have Henry here too, huh?
Yeah. Well, what can we do for you, Bonnie?
Okay, so I guess I'll just ask the question. Your topic is very relevant, how to trust again. So I found out over the weekend that my husband, whom I've been married for 5 years now, he has porn and masturbation addiction, which I knew before getting married, but I also believe in recovery because he was going, Brian, it's not a good time. I'm on a call. He was going to weekly counseling. So I thought, I believe in the program, right? So, anyway, 5 years later, he's still in it. And I just want to know what's my path and what are the limits now, because I understand the TOP model. I understand the growth model. And I read the article about the steps, and they've all been taken. We have individual counselor, we have marriage counselor, and he goes to EMB. He has another group, but the problem is he lied to everybody. He lied about his sobriety, and it's been years now.
Okay, I'm really sorry to hear that, Bonnie. I know that you have always dreamed of having a great marriage, and I think it'd be really helpful because I'm thinking of Henry's 5 steps here, and I think it's a great example of what could be the next step for you, because there's things that you just told us that will fit in. Hank, can you just go into that? It's so relevant.
And it may be my internet, which has been problematic today for some reason. I think it's the rain. I'm actually, our Wi-Fi is down. I'm streaming this through my phone as a hotspot. It's worked, but every now and then your voice kind of went out on me. And so you said you thought it was okay because, and you listed a bunch of stuff that he was in recovery and therapy, and what else?
And because he had been divorced, and it was, few years, afterward, and since the divorce, he had been in, weekly counseling.
Right.
And so I thought that was a really great thing,
Those can be very great things.
Yes. So I guess I was very surprised that I thought it was past tense, and I wasn't familiar with addiction. So I didn't really know.
Has he been treating this from an addiction model, or is he just in counseling, individual therapy, or is he at an addiction model, the way he's looked at this?
Well, that's the part that I'm not sure, because he went to EMB. He's been in Sustained Victory. He's on a weekly call. They have to check in with each other. And that's why I'm so dumbfounded, because he's lied to everybody. He lied to his accountability group. He's lied to his counselor. He's not doing the program.
Oh, so he's been faking it.
Yes.
Okay, so what is the question?
So, but he's very sincere. He's sorry. So the question is, what should be my limit and what should be my requirements when going forward? Because all the things that I knew to do didn't work out.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's very, 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 very difficult to trust somebody who lies.
Yeah.
Okay. When John and I were in training, we had a mentor who was, I think, really the world's expert in treating what they call character disorders, and he would surprise everybody when he would say, he says, and he had a very thick German accent, and he was about 100 years old back then, and he would talk like this, and he says, I tell the patient, I have a couple of conditions under which I will see you. Number one, I cannot do my best work if I feel like I am in danger.
Yeah.
If I ever feel threatened by you or I am in danger, I will terminate the therapy. Number one. Number two, I only operate in a place where there is truthfulness. And if you ever lie to me, I will not see you. Now, that is a great principle, because if somebody's lying to you, you're not really with them in that context.
The patient's not on the operating table.
That's right.
Yes.
They're not there. So I think what I would do is I would want to, now he's come clean, right?
Well, he only came clean because I sort of pressed him, and so he got into. So he didn't totally come clean.
Why did you press him? He must have been seeing something.
Well, because we haven't been intimate for a long time, and he was getting mad at me. He was getting irritated with me, but I knew something was, because he has other addictions. He has eating and drinking. So I sort of, and then I could tell he wasn't handling well. So
hold on a second. I just want you to listen, because earlier what you were telling us, I was totally surprised because, and you said everything, the way you described us, everything sounded so good, right? Now,
right.
now, and this is a really good awareness on your part, now you're saying, well, and there were some ways in which everything did not look good, right?
Right.
There were some signs that you're not dealing with Mr. Squeaky Clean here. So,
Yes.
if you want to know the first step, I think the first step is for you. This is one of the things I talk about in the book. You should not have to be a mind reader or some kind of fortune teller to be able to guess and predict whether or not he's trustworthy. That's something that you should be able to watch and see. But right now, because you need him, you love him, he's a wonderful person in all these other ways, sometimes that vision is not quite 2020. And the first thing I would want you to do is what I talk about in the book, when trust has been betrayed. The first step is for you to get healed. So I would tell him, I'm glad you came clean. I want to talk about how we're going to go forward. But the first thing I need to do is I need to go talk to somebody about getting in a place where I can even see straight.
Yep.
So that's the first thing I think that you would do. Then what's going to happen is, it's great that he's sorry, and if you get the book, it'll unravel this for you. It's great that he's sorry, but it's got to be a certain kind of sorry. The Bible talks about there's a sorrow of the world that leads to death. Judas was sorry. He felt really bad about betraying Jesus, but that didn't lead anywhere good. Peter was very sorry, but that was really based in the love that he had. It wasn't based in just, I'm a bad person. And so I would want somebody skilled with the two of you listening to how much of his sorrow is really about the deep pain that he feels when he looks in your eyes and he sees your pain.
Mm.
So I would start there before we go anywhere. Sorry can get you to forgiveness. It can't get you to trust, because sorry has to do with the past. Trust has to do with the future and what's being earned. So this is going to be a process, and it's great to receive his apology. It's great to say, I want to understand the plan. But then the next thing you're going to have to do after all that is he's probably got to give you some permission to talk to who's going to be the steward of his getting sober process, because you've got to have some way of, and it may be the therapist saying, you tell me what to do. How am I going to trust this? And y'all come up with some sort of way in which you're verifying. You don't have to know everything he's talking about, but that somebody can tell you, yeah, he's coming to his appointments, or his sponsors is going to his meetings, or, some way of verifying that he's living through, living out his commitments. We could go along a lot more on this, but I think you getting healed and getting, like John said earlier, good eyes around you and being on solid ground emotionally, be able to face into this. And then, making some pretty strong requirements about, I can't live if I'm not getting the truth. And
so this is my final question, Henry. He has a counselor that he lies to as well. So that's my point. The accountability people were there, and he was not truthful to them either. So
right.
My question is, when is enough enough, and I should not feel bad about the next decision that I have to make for myself?
Well, one of the things, and I wish we had more time, but one of the things that I talked about.
Yeah, we've got about a minute left, Bonnie. So we're sorry, but he'll do his best for this.
I think there's a step in there after your healing, and I call it pondering. And you've got to ponder, what's at stake here if I walk? What's at stake here if I go forward? And neither one are clean, easy, good options. One of them, you lose everything. The other, you subject yourself maybe to another disappointment. Now, you can mitigate both of those risks. But what I would do as I'm pondering that, and I wouldn't ponder it until after you kind of take that first step of, you know, getting healed of the initial woundedness and shock and everything you got to get over. And then I would go sit, I would love to see him give you permission for you and he to go and sit in front of the counselor and you say, Dr. So-and-so, you and I are in the same boat. He lied to us. So what are we going to do about it? I need your help.
I think that's a great idea.
And you work on it together.
Thank you. Thank you. That's a great idea. And I will do that.
Thanks, Bonnie.
Tough deal.
Sure will say a prayer
All
for
right.
you. Thanks for calling.
Thank you so much, guys.
You're welcome.
Well, thanks for, presenting the material, Henry, and also in how you are applying this to the complicated situations people have. It's a great book. It's coming out the 28th. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it the hardcover. You can get the audio. You can get Kindle. You can get paperback. It's out there.
You know what? We're live today, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you go to, I think it's drcloud.com/trust, and you get it there, you can also get access to a free streaming of a live 2-hour event I'm going to do next week in Orlando. And you also, just by buying the book, and you'll also be able to stream that for the rest of the year if you want to do it for your small group or your church.
Stacey, can you throw that down on the chat?
Absolutely.
Okay, it'll be on there, guys, and y'all notice this is recorded, so you can pick it up later. So, Henry Cloud, thanks again for a great contribution, and this book is going to go great.
Thanks for letting me hop on here. And I don't know if everybody knows this; they probably don't because it's been so long. But John and I did a daily radio show together for many, 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 many years. Yeah. And I miss it. We should do this again sometime.
Yeah, it's good to do the ham and egg show here and there. This is fun.
And we could have some ham. If we had some ham, we could have some ham and eggs if we had some eggs, but we don't have either. So,
and it's that kind of quality, folks, that you'll get when we get together.
All right. Thanks, buddy. Thank y'all.
All right. See you guys next week. Take care.